The CEO of GA Insurance explains.
It's a new mode of delivery of insurance in this part of the world, but in the wider developed world, even as close as South Africa, it's been there for many years. So banks are in constant touch with their clients. And in markets that allow bank assurance, it means then the bank has been regulated to write or to canvass insurance business on behalf of insurance companies.
Developing products that match client needs. So you may find I'm saving with a bank, I have a home, but my home is not insured. Anytime a fire happens, I start from zero. So if a bank comes up with a very interesting product that can cover my home, then it is a very good value addition to me who is saving with the bank, because I will know my property is safe. I've saved money with the bank has provided me some protection for my property, so it is a good initiative.
Uganda's insurance industry hit the trillion ceiling in 2020, having raised 1.6 trillion in gross written premiums despite the pandemic. However, the performance of the insurance sector remains positive.
In Uganda are performing very well. We are performing very well. After the lockdown, we have seen an increased uptake of insurance products and services. A good example is the industry at half year has grown about 22%. So that means in 2022, on 30th of June, we have written 20% more business, more premium than we wrote same period last year. And this is a good prospect because it's driven by two major products. One is medical insurance, which is growing very well, and life insurance. In other words, this, when we analyze it, it gives us the indication that people are beginning to value insurance products that relates to their lives. Yeah,
a quite number of brokers. We have agents, and if you look at the gross written premium every year, is growing and growing, meaning it is at least a serious performance and growth in the industry.
According to statistics, the gross premiums from Insurance Regulatory Authority have continued to grow, rising from 26 billion in 2018 to 83.3 billion in 2020, representing a 220.3% cumulative growth over the period. In 2020, premiums underwritten through bank insurance channel accounted for 7.83% of the 2020 total underwritten premiums, compared to 5.5% in 2019.
Right there. And of course, talking about this very initiative, it has turned the industry into a multi-trillion industry, and that's with the bank insurance. Maybe just to give you a brief on what is bank insurance. Of course, is a direct response of tapping that into the trust enjoyed by banks to grow insurance cover penetration. And now let's cross over to the border centers, as the border operators have been given ample time to register. This has been followed by the postponing to 16th September this very month, and this follows the directive by the Prime Minister calling on to streamline the border transport industry that's within the country. Let's have the details of the report.
The exercise, which started on August 15th across 10 designated census centers around the city, had earlier been scheduled to end on August 30th, but KCCA has been forced to prolong the registration after witnessing fewer riders who turned up in the past 2 weeks.
We've been driven to announce an extension of 16 days in order to ensure that we can record or register every boda rider so that we don't leave out anyone. Of course, has been due to the late recognition by the riders and boda owners that case is very serious regarding the issue of reorganizing transport, boda transport in the city.
Kampala is estimated to have 200,000 motorists, but KCCA claims that not even a quarter have been registered due to different challenges like documents.
So far, entered into our system 20,000 motorcycles, and on average, we are entering between 2,500 to 3,000 per day.
KCCA pleads to all riders to utilize the extended grace period to avoid future inconveniences. However, they continue and say registration in this extended period will be done at the division headquarters of the 5 divisions, since some of the registration centers are schools and yet schools are to open on Monday.
Shifting of registration centers has been necessitated by the fact that schools are going to open. The schools are going to open, so up until Friday, that is tomorrow, the centers are going to be open. But next week, then they'll shift to the division offices, where the registration will go on up to the deadline of 16th of September.
KCCA still maintains that the registration is to plan, regulate and organize the boda transport sector and order in the city.
Postponing the border census, I remember the very first time it was initiated, majority of the centers were not ready, as the border riders were already in place, but the authorities had not yet arrived to execute the exercise. That showed that probably there wasn't enough preparations that were made to execute that very initiative. And I'm not surprised that it's been postponed. There is need to give some ample time to the border people also to put themselves together. And now let's cross over to the Uganda's exports. Today we are going to examine Uganda's exports. Agricultural products contribute 80% of the total exports of Uganda. Coffee being the most important export for its 22% of the total exports, followed by tea, cotton, there is copper, oil, and fish. Uganda's exports of goods and services as a percentage of GDP is 17. The percentage of the exports and services on the GDP, it's 17.20%. Uganda's main export partners include Sudan, Kenya, Sudan contributing 15%, Kenya 10%, Democratic Republic of Congo, Netherlands, Germany, South Africa. And the main products that are exported to these countries include the main products, that is exports to the United States, is coffee. In 2020, Uganda exported a total of $5.87 billion worth of exports, making it number 108 exporter in the world. When we compare the countries that export, Uganda took 108th position. Let's have the details of this report.
Products are of quality to compete at that level, and we can achieve this through value addition. Number two, we must enter into partnerships.
Asking the customers of these chocolates, do you like the chocolate? Is it at a good price? Is the quality of supply reasonable? Is the quantity of supply reasonable? And then we can really feed that information back into our domestic export promotion strategy. And then I think there's another channel here. So we can leverage our development partners who are here in the front row, who do a lot of work on supporting Ugandan firms to expand their markets. I think we can be doing a lot more working with the commercial attaches of our foreign embassies overseas, working with development partners based here to really promote Ugandan products in other markets.
Our revenue from exports, like in the ESC, we were the best. Our net exports were the best. Trade between us and other partner states. We traded more with them.
That's regarding Uganda's exports to the different countries. As we see, there are initiatives that are put in place to ensure that most of these exports, there is value addition added onto them to ensure that there is competitiveness on the global market. And also, despite the fact that we emphasize the quality, but quantity is very important, because you find that in the developed countries, what really matters is the ability for you to sustain the market. If you say you're going to be exporting these number of tons every year of a certain commodity, it could be an agricultural product, you should be able to be consistent. So as much as there is emphasis on quantity, quality, quantity is also something very key to take into consideration. Now let's cross over to curbing inflation and how to control inflation that's climate change. The Prime Minister of Uganda, Robinah Nabbanja, while closing the 60th Economic Growth Forum, gave her recommendation on how to manage the high inflation in the country that causes the rising prices of commodities due to increase of the fuel prices. The Bank of Uganda recently projected that the central bank rate will remain in line to 6.0% to 7%. That's in the next 10 years. This will affect the borrowers definitely with high interest rates to get loans from the commercial banks. Let's have the details of this report.
By the closing of the 6th Economic Growth Forum, several issues were considered for the development of the country. Right Honorable Robinah Nabbanja views that the country is at risk due to too much borrowing, which has led to the rise of Uganda's debt of $73.4 billion.
We are getting out of the worst effects of the pandemic. We faced some other risks. Inflation has been on the rise, largely because most global economies continue to lift all restrictions related to the pandemic. Like I told you in Parliament, this led to more demand of materials than their supply. And this has been made worse by the war between Russia and Ukraine, which has affected the supplies of key raw materials for our industries, such as those producing cooking oil, fuel, and soap. We have also recently been faced with a number of other natural disasters, such as floods, you know what happened in Indari, droughts, and the other climate change related hazards. With these kind of risks, achieving our growth potential is at risk that requires each and everyone's input.
In addition to that, as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, the Prime Minister says there is need to mobilize more domestic revenue to spur economic recovery.
Climate change, which is one of the major challenges we face now. 2, enhancing domestic resource mobilization, like the Minister said, so that we reduce on our dependency of borrowing.
Stephen Asimwe, Executive Director of Private Sector Foundation Uganda, says that to spur economic recovery, there is need to have engagements on how to add value to our exports and increase capacity on the local content.
Dialogue to discuss the necessary inputs they want in the budget. And I think in the last 2 years, I must give you credit, that we have had these engagements on a constant basis.
According to the projected central bank rate, in the next 10 years, inflation will remain in the range of 6.0 to 7%, which could be the solutions. Ugandans are encouraged to spend wisely so that they can manage the little money they have.
Curbing inflation. And of course, there is an initiative by the government to release on external borrowing and mobilize more funds through domestic borrowing, because majority of these loans gotten from other countries, probably it could be institutions internationally come with high interest rates. And at the end of the day, when it comes to paying back them, it comes back to the economy and coming back to the normal citizen to pay that. And of course, that will always lead to rising commodity prices. But domestic borrowing is a solution to that. And let's cross over to the renewal of national identification cards, as government is to commence the renewal of national IDs from June 2023, August 2024, free of charge. And appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Defense, Kahinda Otafire, the Minister for Internal Affairs, says the express services will be costing 50,000. Let's have the details.
Comprehensive budget preparation and procurement. We passed a budget where you did not have the support budget for this exercise.
The National Identification and Registration Authority will start a new round of the National Identity Card registration exercise for all Ugandans starting from June 2023 to August 2024, as the current national IDs are set to expire in 2024. While appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Defense, Kahinda Otafire, the Minister of Internal Affairs, revealed that all Ugandans will get the new national ID free of charge, adding that only those in need of express national IDs can apply via the internet and pay a fee of 50,000.
It's you and I who lose identity cards. For them, they have the identity cards because they don't use them regularly. So those peasants will have the identity cards renewed for free. Same system.
According to a report from the Minister of Internal Affairs, the new national ID will contain several new features which wouldn't necessarily require the change of the current NINI number. The report also indicates that the biodata captured does not change. They shall only improve the variables captured on your national ID.
For the increment of, what is this percentage? From 50 to 200,000. 50 to 200,000. If you think of your person in Kashenshoro there, that peasant.
However, disagreements emerged when the minister says that the people who lost their national IDs would have to pay from 50,000 to 200,000.
From 50,000, it's a lot. You look at the peasants, look at the people that have needs those services, and remember, identity card is needed everywhere. Whether you are going to the bank, to the hospital, everywhere you need an identity card. Look at those unemployed youth that don't have access to income. Where are they going to get 200,000 shillings to replace an identity card?
The minister notes that citizens will not be charged for mistakes on their national ID, especially if it was due to NIRA's negligence.
No, you are not going to be charged for a mistake that is done by NIRA. Because when a registration is generated, the information captured on the form is also captured by the system. So if the system discovers that the mistake was done in-house, you will not be charged. You already is. A national ID is free. We are only saying if you want specialized service, like Express, you will have to pay 50,000 and you register yourself on your own computer, you do it online. So all those who can afford to pay and do it online will pay 50,000 to access the system, and they will get their national IDs Express. But as for the ordinary people, it will be exactly like it was done before. People will register or change their card for free.
He explained that the current national IDs have a lifespan of 10 years, which is elapsing in 2024. Otafire revealed that in 2024, the country will migrate to improved and user-friendly national IDs due to the improvement in technology and demands of modernity.
That's regarding the renewal of the national identity cards. And of course, these are going to come with an advanced technology that is going to, of course, to be able to ease the government's work in terms of executing services and also being able to locate the different people, or in case of any crime rates that are being committed. And of course, next year, that's in August, that's when this exercise is going to commence. But it's free of charge. That if you want it as fast as possible, if you're not patient enough, you just have a fee of just 50,000 to ensure that you can actually get it in time. Just like we had the passports, the old passports being phased out, but majority, some of the people had actually gotten the passports just before the time of expiry. So all IDs, regardless of maybe you got it 2 years back, it's just it's a transition. We're heading into better ways of doing things to ease the work of the government. And of course, this is also to help the government find a way to serve the citizens of Uganda efficiently with everything being put in proper usage. And that's it for the recap this morning. And of course, if you just joined us, just to give you a highlight of where we started from. We started with the bank insurance, that before this product was put into the Ugandan insurance sector, it was growing at less than 5%, but ever since its initiative, the insurance sector is now growing at 18%. Then we crossed over to the border census, as the border operators have been given much more time. This has been followed by the postponing of the exercise that's regarding. And we also examined Uganda's exports, knowing which country are the main export partners and what Uganda exports most, and which countries does it export and what quantity it does export. Then we crossed over to curbing inflation, that's controlling inflation that causes climate change, with the statement from the Prime Minister, that's Robinah Nabbanja, regarding that matter. And we winded it up with the renewal of the National Identity Card. And of course, I'll be joining you again with Jerome Paulson, because we shall be discussing the weekly topic SMB on ground, topics that we've been doing throughout the week. And Jerome Paulson is already here to take you through the show, Smart Means Business. Stick around. Good morning.